Welcome back to another episode of the Michigan Sports Media Network. And today, football season is almost here. It is so close. I can spit and hit it. It's just a few days. Now, for college football people and, high school football people, it started last week, of course, as we know. But for us Lions fans, okay, it starts on Sunday. And I will tell you what, we got quite a beauty cooking this weekend for our not I almost said home opener. I wish it was at home for our opener for this season against Green Bay. But before we get into that, we had some recent news happen. Nothing too big. Don't get too excited, folks. It ain't Zadarius Smith. And I will tell you what, there's something also that I just saw with that Zadarius Smith ain't coming, folks. So move on and get over it. Did you see Dan Campbell's recent comments?
Yes.
He said, and I quote, "We're good." And he obviously went on to say a little bit more. He said, right now we're good. We got Davenport, we got Hutch, we got depth, we got some guys on the inside who can kind of play outside. So they feel fine. They feel like they don't need him. We shall
Did you
see.
s- did you see the counter post by Zadarius Smith's girlfriend?
Yes, but, you know,
I'm like, all right, well, if you're good, we're good, and I don't know. I can only speculate because like obviously we both want him here, but like I don't know. Is he asking for like a ton of money or something? Because no one signed him yet. Like there's other teams that would like him too.
well, and I hate to say this because I don't like to, be, a hater after a guy leaves or anything, but I will say there's been a lot of rumors about Zadarius Smith, even when we traded for him, that he's got some kind of off the field stuff.
Okay.
And I don't know what it is. Nobody's really mentioned anything specific. I mean, I saw some stuff about some injuries or some other just money things or whatever. So, from what I gather, it kind of sounds like that's kind of been a recurring issue with every team he's been at. So I don't know. Maybe he just doesn't fit the culture. I mean, if you think about it, we, didn't really trade much for him. I mean, we only traded for him because we kind of had to
Yeah.
because of, where we were. We were a Super Bowl team realistically, and our, top, maybe our top player on the whole team, but our top player on defense for sure broke his freaking leg. So we needed a guy to replace him, and Zadarius Smith was available and cheap. And he might not have fit the culture, but he could get it done on Sundays for the half the season that we had him, I guess. And if you think about it that way, it's like, I kind of
Yeah.
get it, you
With
know?
you saying that, like to be honest, I'm kind of a little bummed I didn't think of that aspect of it. Because I'm like, he's at least solid. I'm not gonna say he's amazing, but he's good, at least good enough. And I'm like, him on the other side of Hutch, it makes all the sense in the world to bring him back. But and I'm not, trying to throw shade, but the quote from I believe it was year one of Dan Campbell, almost always rings in my head. No turds here.
Mm-hmm.
So if he is a locker room problem, which I don't know, I've never met the guy, but
Right.
if he is a locker room problem, then that would explain everything. So
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of where I'm at with it now, where it's like for the last, I don't know, what, 2, 3 months, we've been talking about it almost every podcast. Like, hope we sign him, hope we sign him. And if that's the case, I get it. But then I still don't understand why we aren't looking at other people. But we've already had that conversation many, many times. And I am going to, I'm going to wait and see what we got week one because the preseason only shows us so much. I mean, as we know, we see mostly guys that we fucking end up cutting. So it's like, that's great, but I just watched 3 quarters a week of half the guys that aren't even on the team anymore. So we don't really know what we got at this point. So I feel, I'll reserve judgment until after this game and kind of see how it goes. But with that being said, I think we might have lost James. But with that being said, we are, or we did, I should say, bring in a few new players for a visit. Couple quarterbacks, couple receivers. Um, Actually, it's a couple names that I brought up a couple weeks ago when we had the whole Hendon Hooker's future conversation, which I'm just saying we knew he was not going to be on the roster. It was obvious, I feel like. Um,
Yep.
Now, the Lions brought in today quarterbacks Nathan Peterman and CJ Beathard, and wide receivers Kendrick Pryor, Malik Cunningham, and I might be saying this wrong, but Jerwan Newton. Now, I don't really understand the receiver thing unless it's just a practice squad body, I guess, but the quarterback thing makes a ton of sense because we only have
Yep.
two. I mean, we didn't even add Hooker back to the practice squad. So,
No, he signed with Carolina.
yeah. So like we have no I think right now we have no quarterback on the practice squad currently.
No, we
So
just have Goff and Allen, but yeah, none on the
okay.
practice squad.
Yeah, so we definitely need to add another one. And as we know, veteran ability to be on a practice squad now kind of changes that, as well as being able to suit up your third quarterback on game days, or your practice squad quarterback, I should say, on game days, and it doesn't count towards a roster spot, which makes a lot of sense if we do add one of these guys to the practice squad, because now we have three, I'm not going to say good, but viable at their spots quarterbacks, second and third quarterback, um, that can kind of get it done if Goff goes down. I mean, obviously, we're going to be pretty much fucked if he does go down, but at least then we have a guy like Allen to step in, and then if, God forbid, he gets hurt too, we have another guy who started some games before. The receiver thing, though, I'm like, okay, probably just a practice squad body. I don't really see anything coming to that. So,
Even that to me is kind of, I don't want to say suspicious, but kind of just confusing because I'm looking at our practice squad right now and we already have three receivers on it. So do you like we already talked about in prior podcasts the depth that we have at receiver, between, Lovett and Meeks and um obviously Meeks didn't make the initial 53. He is one of the three on the practice squad, but the Lions also have Ronnie Bell and Tom Kennedy also on the practice squad. So with practice squads being expanded to 16 players, we already have three of those 16 spots additional receivers. So
mhm,
working out even more receivers is just kind of a head scratch to me. But I do
yeah.
totally understand the quarterbacks.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, at the end of the day, if they do sign one, what I would assume is they'll probably drop Ronnie Brown from the practice squad. So I think it's not like a needle mover by any means.
Yeah.
So, but moving on now to the topic of the day. The Lions are taking on the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau, unfortunately, which I will say I was there for last year's game at Lambeau where we put that ass down, and it was awesome to talk shit to Packers fans while the Lions ran it down their fucking throat. So
It's
that
still
was
always
great.
fun to talk shit to Packers fans.
Yeah, especially when you're surrounded by those fuckers and they're talking shit so much before the game starts. And I'll tell you what, that fourth down Jameer Gibbs run for a touchdown broke them. Broke them. Like literally, they all just shit the bed as fans. It was hilarious to see. But with that being said, this Sunday at 4:25 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Detroit Lions. I know I hate 4:30 kickoffs. It
I
sucks
like one.
ass. You
I
gotta
like
wait
one
all
o'clock
day.
games.
Yeah, dude, it's just nice. It
Like,
feels right. It's a Midwestern vibe. It's
yeah,
just like this is what we do. Like
it's two
get up in the
Midwest
morning.
teams in that. Yeah.
hmm And so yeah, 4:30, 4:25 kickoff. But um, at the end of the day, as we know, the Lions have had a lot of changes this offseason. Probably more than we would like to have in one offseason, if we're being honest. Like, just genuinely, bro. Like, I'm not worried, but I'm like, holy fucking shit, man. New interior offensive line completely. New offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, not total new staff, but we've added a lot of new coaches this offseason. So we got a lot of different stuff going on, which also is kind of a good thing. We added a new defensive tackle. Obviously McNeil's out, but Tyleik Williams hopefully plays pretty well, and in his absence, we added Tesla, and DJ Reed is another guy I feel like people haven't really been talking about ever since we signed him, which is kind of weird because he was our big fish of free agency, and then everybody's just kind of talking about Terrion Arnold, and I haven't really. I mean, obviously you hear some stuff about him, but it's not. They don't talk about him like you normally would. The big fish free agent for the frickin' I'm not going to say favorites, but we're contenders for the Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
He's not really getting that hype right now. So I'm excited to see how he plays. Um, but I did want to kind of just go into, our keys for the game because I feel like everything that I kind of just mentioned is essentially what I was going to say in short form. So I'm going to start with the Lions defensive line because I personally feel like if this Lions defensive line plays really well, Hutch, Davenport, Williams, Reeder, and then, kind of whoever else we use in that other spot at times. Um, if they get after it and they play really good against the run, we get some sacks. I don't see how we lose this game. Really, it's one of those games where it's like we should win, but if our D line dominates, we're going to win definitely. Now, there is a chance I will say that, our D line doesn't do too great. And I will say that because the Packers' offensive line is actually pretty fucking good. They have a really good running back over there. He's one of the best backs in the league. And I think they do a good job of scheming their run game as well. So, like, if our defensive line is even just okay outside of Hutch, I mean, obviously we know Hutch is probably going to fucking do his thing, but outside of Hutch, if they just are kind of okay, I'm a little worried. Um, and that's kind of like, you know, the big question mark for me on that defensive line, I think for everybody, is Marcus Davenport. I mean, if he comes out and even stays healthy, we have a whole new conversation.
Is
So
there question marks around him?
maybe I don't know. There might be some
Um,
Lions fans, might not trust him, maybe or something like that. I don't know.
I
I've just seen it
for
on
once
Twitter,
I
so.
can't blame the masses.
Right. True. It's like, well, fool me once, fool me twice, fool me thrice, fool me four times. All right, where are we going with this? It's like,
Exactly.
how's this gonna go? But no, Marcus Davenport is really the biggest question mark, obviously, and then Tyleik Williams is another big one for us because he is a rookie. Obviously, he was a first round pick. He's a very good player, but we never know how those guys are going to play, especially the first few games of their NFL career. So that is my first key of the game. If we can get pass rush, get some pressure on Jordan Love, I don't feel like Jordan Love is underrated by some and overrated by some as well. I feel like he's a pretty damn good quarterback, but if you can get pressure on him and hit him early and often, he's gonna, falter a little bit. So I think if we can do that, and if we can, we're probably not going to be able to just stop the run, but if we can play well against the run, I think that will be the game changer, at least defensively, for us. Because obviously, I feel like we know, the Packers have some good receivers, but personally, I'm not all that worried about their receivers necessarily. So I'm a little bit more worried about the run game.
Yeah.
But with that being said, that is my first key of the game. What is yours?
Um, as you mentioned, and as we both mentioned last week with when we were talking about the Parsons trade, um, obviously they got better with their pass rush, but I feel like they did get weaker with their run defense. So kind of piggybacking off you, just establishing the run.
Hmm.
The Packers, in my opinion, I literally don't give a single crap about any of their receivers or tight ends. I don't want to say worthless, but I will just because I'm a Lions fan. But none of them scare me. Like um, no, I don't think they have anyone that you have to like key rec. Like there's no Justin Jefferson. Hell, I don't even think they have a Jordan Addison.
I
Maybe
I
with
will say
Golden, but he's an
that's what I was
unproven
gonna say.
rookie. So I'm like,
Yeah, I was just
maybe
about
with
to say
Golden.
Golden.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I talked him up on other podcasts prior to the draft, so I'm not gonna crap on him just because he's a Packer. But I'm not afraid of a rookie playing his first ever game. So he could be nice, but he could take some time to adjust.
Yeah,
If he's the main guy you gotta like key rec on offense, I think you can game plan for a rookie pretty easily, actually, especially with DJ Reed, Terry and Arnold, Kirby, Branch, etc. So stopping the run and I'm sorry, I mentioned all that, not being afraid of their tight ends and receivers. Jacobs is the only person on their offense I'm worried about. And I wouldn't personally say worried, but he is the one that you have to game plan for. I don't know if it was the first game against us last year or the second game, but I know one of the games against the Lions, he had 3 touchdowns last year. So
Hmm.
I know we swept Green Bay last year, but he's still, in my opinion, the focal point of that offense in terms of who you need to stop. And then just vice versa. If we control the run game with, them losing Kenny Clark and not just for this matchup, but just football in general. If you control the run game, you control the clock, you can limit the possessions with longer drives. With Gibbs and Montgomery, and even with our young interior O line, which I know you will talk about further later, but I'd say just the run game, stopping the run and running the ball would be my first key to success on this upcoming Sunday.
Yeah, and I have to, agree on that. And that actually is a great, piggyback into my next point, which is the Lions' offensive line. I do feel like the big key for me, and this is kind of like the biggest one in my opinion for the game period. Obviously, if our defensive line just dominates, it'll be a game changer. But we have 3 new interior offensive linemen. And I know Graham Glasgow was here last year, but he's playing a different position. So let's just consider him new too. We have a new center, a new left and right guard. Um, Now, we do have good players, yes, but we did lose 2 All-Pros. So let's not sit here and act like it's going to be the exact same because it's not. However, I do believe in this Lions O line, and I do believe that as long as we scheme it correctly, I feel like we could have a big day offensively. And I know Micah Parsons just got traded to Green Bay. Yes, let's not ignore the elephant in the room. We know that, and we will talk about it in depth later. But I do feel, we mentioned it last week on the pod. Panay Sewell is kind of an eraser, right? And I'm sure everyone has seen. I know I have the clips of Micah Parsons pressures versus Panay Sewell. Okay, on that clip, it's like a minute and a half. There's probably 10 pressures total, quote unquote pressures total in that video. I would say probably 2 of them are real one-on-one pressure against Panay Sewell because a lot of them he was like in good position, but like let's just say like this. Goff snaps the ball, he's standing in the pocket. He sees pressure from the front left guard. So he steps back to the right, and that then brings him into Panay Sewell and makes it look like Panay Sewell was the one who got pressured, but it's literally because Goff drifted into the pocket into where Sewell was. And he didn't even sack him. Goff just stepped up and threw the ball. But that was kind of it was a lot of that and a lot of like stunts where Micah starts on Sewell and then he cuts in and gets passed off to the guard and then the D tackle comes out for Sewell and they count that as a pressure on Sewell. And it's like, come on, guys, that's a bit cheap. You know what I mean? And I'll say the 2 or 3 that were real, they were real. He beat him. But in 2 games in the last 2 years, he's had 2 pressures. Great. Now, I will say, as I brought up last week, Taylor Decker is probably going to be the one to see Parsons the most, if you ask me. At least, if it were me, look, man, I as a football coach have had to come to terms that sometimes it's better to just be smart instead of tough, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, you could go, I'm going to put my best guy against your best guy and they're going to battle it out because that's what it's about. But it's like, sure,
No.
but why would you?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Why would you do that? You're essentially taking your best player and saying, well, you're not going to matter that much this game because you're going up against their best player every play. That to me would be the wrong decision. I would put Parsons, I would flip him. I'm sure they'll do that. They'll use him as a linebacker getting pressure. He's going to stunt, he's going to twist, he's going to come from the middle, he's going to do all types of shit, I'm sure. But I also feel like it starts, as we mentioned before, it starts in the run game, right? If we can get this ball going and run it down their throat for a decent amount of this game. I feel like that's going to get those pass rushers on their heels instead of just coming back, pinning their ears back and coming
Yeah.
for the quarterback. Like that's just kind of how that goes. So I do feel like Parsons is going to be a problem. Don't get me wrong; he's going to be a difference maker. It's impossible for you to add a guy like Micah frickin' Parsons to your football team and him not make a difference unless you literally don't put him on the field. That's the only way. You put him on the field on kickoff, he's going to make a fucking difference. I guarantee you. He's just one of those guys. And I know a lot of Lions fans don't want to hear this right now because he went to Green Bay. But it is what it is. I'm a football fan at the end of the day. And that is one of the best pass rushers in the NFL right now, period. Okay. But back to the Lions offensive line specifically, I'm a little worried about the interior. We know our tackles are good, but I do feel, as you mentioned, with Kenny Clark, getting traded, that helps us out a lot with our interior too. I do think they have some good players over there still, though, so it's not going to be a cakewalk or anything like that. But I feel pretty confident in the guys that we have right now to get the job done on Sunday as an offensive line unit. Obviously there's going to be some mistakes and mishaps and shit's going to happen. I'm sure Goff might even get sacked once or twice. Who knows? Who knows? Offensive linemen might not be fucking perfect people. But anyway, that's a conversation for
Cut
another
him.
time. Sewell, you got beat by Aiden Hutchinson in practice? Walk home, brother. Like what? Like what kind of dumb shit?
I've seen some people say that, man. I just
Like, get the fuck, drop your pads off in the locker room, buddy. Like, what the fuck are we talking about right now?
bring your
Um,
playbook.
type shit. But like, basically, point being, I do feel confident in the Lions O line. They are a big question mark, though, and I would say the biggest one because until we see them perform at a high level against a good team, we don't know. It's kind of like what you said with Golden. We just don't know. So we'll see how it goes. I will say, I am more confident, honestly, in Ratledge right now than I am in Glasgow and Mahogany. So whatever that means, that does exist. But what are your thoughts on that key?
Um, I hate to always agree with you because I feel like it makes more compelling content when we disagree and people can have two viewpoints. But when we're in lockstep, we're in lockstep. Like you mentioned, I count Glasgow kind of as a new player just because, as you mentioned, he's playing in a new position.
Hmm.
Granted, he has played at center before, but not from last year, so it's still an adjustment. He's the one now calling out the blitz packages and all that kind of other stuff. The you know what I mean. I'm spacing on it right now, but and I also agree because I mean I love Ratledge throughout the whole process, so I am very confident in him. I am I don't want to put Glasgow on blast because I do like the guy. I am also more confident in Mahogany because I know he's only played in those two games, but in those two games he looked phenomenal. And I was I'm not gonna say super high on him, but he was a name I knew in the draft. So when we took him, I believe it was in the sixth round last year. He was a name that was kind of like, wow, how is he still there? Kind of like this year's Miles Frazier when I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
how is he still there? So and then I also in like my show prep wanted to bring up how, in my opinion, I think we're decently thin on our reserve interior O line. So even if one of those three guys go down, but at least in terms of the season, I kind of just reminded myself during this segment. I'm like Miles Frazier can fill in at pretty much any of those spots. So I know
Hmm.
he is not active to start. I think he's on the pup list or something like that, but he will be with us sooner rather than later. I did see his. I don't know if I want to, if it was a practice window thing, but I remember seeing a picture on Twitter of him taking a picture of his locker or whatever in Ford Field and saying like we're back or something like that. So he's at least starting his rehab or whatever he's doing in that front. But yeah, like you mentioned, also it's not going to be a cakewalk in terms of our O line. Like Michael Parsons and Rashawn Gary are legit. I just think it kind of is strength for strength, even if it's Parsons on Decker, which would be, in my opinion, the best matchup for Green Bay. I think Decker right now is our second best lineman, so it could be worse for us Lions fans. Our strength is in our tackles, and their strength is in their DNs. I saw a clip of someone posting Parsons kind of like rushing up the middle, not in a stunt, but just like lining up almost like a middle linebacker 2 or 3 yards off. But I'm just like, if that were the case, then he's not on an island. You can double team him. I mean, there's other things you can do in that situation. So we'll see what happens on Sunday, but I'm not overly worried about it.
Yeah, and before we move on, I did kind of forget a couple things that I did want to mention with the Lions' offensive line too. Uh, Rashawn Gary again is another guy that I feel like is not getting talked about enough in this whole Micah Parsons deal because you know what? That a really, really, really nice room of edge rushers, man.
Yep.
And as a Lions fan, I can't help but sit here and be jealous because it's just like
Where's our
that's like
Rashawn Gary?
that would be literally like yes, it would be like having Aiden Hutchinson and like I don't even know like Daniil
Crosby,
Hunter.
Miles Garrett, all these other names you mentioned this offseason.
Well, I wouldn't
I
go
know he's
quite
not
that
that,
far,
yeah.
but that's why I said who I said because like Daniil Hunter's a very very good
Yeah,
player, but
absolutely.
he has his issues as we all know. So that's kind of what would be perfect for us, but no, Rashawn Gary is a very, very good player, and I feel like that's going to be what scares me, honestly, is the fact that you can't double him at all because you're doubling Parsons.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if he has a better game than Parsons does, statistically. You know,
Oh, absolutely.
at the end of the day, like he could be the one to get the pressures and the sacks today just because Parsons is, commanding too
More
much.
game plan for you.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I wanted to mention about the interior O line that I forgot to say was I am like kind of interested to see how this affects Goff, right? Because think about it. From a football standpoint, Goff just lost his center that he's had his entire Lions career. They have a rapport together. They built a relationship, where they understand each other's even just like little like physical tells for certain things. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're that in that relationship, quarterback to center, it's like a different bond. I feel like they have to have like a very close bond to make that work. So that kind of worries me a little bit. Like, how confident is Goff going to feel when he goes under center or he's taking that snap from Glasgow and is he thinking like, I got to get this fucker out fast because Ragnow ain't up there no more and Zeitler ain't up there. But that's one part of it, and then another part is like, how confident is Goff going to be sitting back in that pocket in general? The first couple games even. I feel like with a brand new interior O line there's a lot that they're going to have to learn over these next few games too, and communication and being cohesive. Because, dude, this is the first time outside of adding Zeitler, really, that the Lions have had a different offensive line in the past like 5 years. It's looked pretty similar the last couple years. Obviously, we've had a couple different guards or whatever the case may be, but it's been pretty much the same. At least we knew
Yep.
Ragnow, Decker, and Sewell were always going to be there. That's not the case anymore. So I just wonder how that's going to affect Goff's game, especially the first couple weeks of the year, as he gets more comfortable with those guys. And obviously, if they just are fucking stonewalling dudes, he's not going to have that problem for too long. But I would bet and I would guess that there's going to be some mishaps and there's going to be some problems where Goff gets sacked like in a second because somebody didn't slide the right way or somebody didn't pick up the blitzer because they thought this call meant this and that. With young guys, especially in a new system, especially their first NFL system, it's going to be a learning curve. So I am prepared for prepared for the worst, but hoping for the best with that, basically. Um,
The
which,
one thing
funny enough, go ahead.
I say the one thing I want to kind of pile on with that also is, and I don't want to beat a dead horse because I mentioned it in another podcast as well. However, with all that being said, the different protections, the different taking snaps from a different guy, all that. quick sidebar might happen again next year because Campbell said Ratledge is probably the long-term center, so we might be going through this whole process again. But
Hmm.
coming back to what I was going to say also is, um, oh shit, I just lost my train of thought. Um,
Glasgow, new
oh,
center, Goff.
not playing in the preseason.
Yeah.
I don't get me wrong, I like obviously preserving the starters as long as we can, and but we played zero preseason reps with these guys. That in my opinion is critical time. I mean, hell,
Hmm.
Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes took preseason reps. So if you see Burrow and Mahomes taking reps, no offense, Goff, I really like Goff. You're not quite in that tier. So it's just like I don't know. I feel like we had an opportunity to kind of work out some of these early potential miscommunications, and I don't want to say we failed because I mean, who knows? Maybe they just grind the hell out of it in practice. But as you know from being a coach and a former player, practice isn't a game. It's a different animal when you're actually playing. So
Yeah, and
we'll see.
kind of to add to that though, I kind of feel like that might be why they don't do the preseason thing because dude, they do joint practices. That's a big thing I think too,
Yeah.
is when you have another team in there and that really helps. And but I also feel like they practice so hard. Like it's one of those things where I kind of get it literally just from a rest standpoint of like if we're going this hard in practice, we probably shouldn't. However, the quarterback ain't getting hit, so it kind of I feel like he should at least get some reps. I kind of understand the O line and everything like that. You know, you got to see the backups and shit, but
I would not want to see golf behind a backup O line in
that's
preseason.
the and that's the thing. It's like if you're gonna do one, you have to do both. But
Yep.
like, and that's just so I kind of get it, but I do agree. I would like to see some more
Yeah,
preseason
just a couple
stuff.
drives. I'm not, obviously not the
Maybe even
whole
just
game,
one.
but
I mean, even just one
yeah,
drive. Get them out there first
one.
drive of the
I'd say
game.
one or two a week,
Yeah,
and that's it. Like I'm not,
yeah,
obviously I'm not saying you should play the whole game or anything, but
right.
yeah, at least get your feet wet.
Yeah. And which, I was going to say, speaking of, hoping for the best and preparing for the worst, I have to play Hudsonville this Thursday as the JV head coach. And I don't know if anybody knows this, but Isaac Tesla's dad is the coach at Hudsonville. He's the JV head coach, I'm almost certain as well, because he's not the head coach, but he was one of the first assistants listed. So if he's not like the OC, he's probably the JV head coach, which means I will be coaching against him literally.
Good
Um,
luck.
right, well, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say they were undefeated last year at all three levels,
Jesus.
and state runner-ups. I'm pretty sure. If not, they lost the playoff game before that. So they're coming to our house, and we're gonna shock the world, baby. We're gonna be Vanderbilt against Alabama. But no, that I just thought it was kind of cool that Tesla's dad coaches there. I don't know if I'll even see
Absolutely,
him,
yeah.
but that's pretty sweet. But with that being said, moving on to our last, key point about the Lions game. Um, for me, it's an obvious one: the play calling on both sides of the ball. That's what it comes down to. What is our new coordinators calling during this game to get us in better spots than we were in previous situations in this game? And that's kind of what I'm very like curious about because as we've talked about many times, we have an entire new coordinator staff and a decent amount of new coaches on both sides of the ball. So it's going to be interesting to see what's the difference between a Ben Johnson offense and a John Morton offense. And we obviously were told today by Dan Campbell that it's more of a teamwork offense situation where everybody can kind of help out and run it in certain situations. So we kind of knew that though with Ben Johnson too. We kind of knew Dan Campbell was doing a lot with the offense. We knew Fraley was doing a lot with the offense. We knew that I'm sure the quarterback coach Brunell as well had some say in what we were doing. So I feel pretty confident about our offensive play calling. I am really excited to see the difference in our run game. Like, how is it going to look any different? Are we going to run the same kind of plays? Are we going to try to stretch the ball more? Whatever the case may be with that. And then, of course, I'm excited to see what plays he calls, but I'm also excited to see kind of like because when we went to that training camp, I saw the route concepts and I was very impressed. So I'm kind of looking forward to see how that's going to work. And then, kind of with that too. I'm excited to see how he's going to use guys like Gibbs and JMO because those are guys that Gibbs more than JMO, I feel like. Obviously, JMO had a really good season last year, but I still don't feel like he's quite unlocked yet in this scheme. Like, we're using him pretty well, but I still think there's another kind of level we could hit. And I'm not even saying statistically, just in terms of like what difference he makes on the field because teams have to prepare for him. You know what I mean? They have to be ready for everything. And then with Gibbs, same thing, really. It's like we knew what he did last, or we know what he did last year. He's going to be the real, true RB1. David Montgomery is going to be our change of pace guy, I think. What does that look like? You know, what routes is he running out of the backfield? Is he playing slot? Are Monty and him on the field at the same time? Offensively, at least, that's kind of what I personally am interested in seeing. And then defensively, kind of it's a lot simpler, I think, defensively. What coverages are we using? Are we a lot of man still? Are we doing a lot more zone? What's the plan with that? And then, what fronts are we using? 3-4, 4-3, over, under, whatever the case may be, bear, whatever the case may be. What are we doing a lot more? Blitzes, like I feel like we didn't blitz all that much with Aaron Glenn, so I'm intrigued to see how Kelvin Shepard will, get the blitz going because he's a former linebacker, and I feel like linebackers love to blitz. So I feel like as a coordinator, he's going to love the blitz as well.
Hugh Derek
So
Barnes.
exactly. And then again, physicality. I feel like we've seen a very physical Lions defense all summer long, and I'm excited to kind of see how that carries over, how Shepard's going to keep these guys locked in all game, the intensity, the aggression, the physicality, all that stuff. Because look, this is a Super Bowl team, and if we want to win one, we are going to have to hit all of those things. And not just this week, every week. So with that being said, though, what are your thoughts on the final key of the game?
Um, I was gonna bring up at least offensive play calling. I trust Shepard, and don't get me wrong, I trust Morton to a degree as well. But Shepard being an in-house promotion, I feel like that's just gonna be the smoothest transition of the two. And I know Morton was here, I want to say 2 years ago. He had 1 year with while Goff was here as an assistant, but he's only had 1 year as a play caller with the Jets. But I know in a prior podcast I mentioned that. I just always feel like I'm being negative, but um, the Jets had no one on offense. I remember his best receiver was Robbie Anderson, or changed his name to Chosen Anderson, and his
And then he was
quarterback.
not chosen anymore, and they cut his ass. Just saying.
Yeah,
Anyway,
his quarterback was Luke McCowan. Like, and he got fired after 1 year. I'm like, no one could have made that offense work. So like I saw, and I don't know, maybe it's just fan rivalry banter on Twitter, but people being like, "Oh, your OC had 1 year and he sucks so bad he got fired." I'm like, you don't have anyone to coach, man. Like
well, and he didn't get fired. They all got fired.
that's
That's the
true too.
difference.
That
It'd
is
be
true
different if he
too.
just him, but it was like the head coach got let go, so
But
he got let go as well.
yeah, I'm like, I did a side-by-side comparison, at least of the skill players, and I'm just like, there's literally not a spot, not a tight end, running back, receiver, quarterback, etc., that is worse here than what he had with, I want to say it was the 2012 Jets.
That sounds about
Um,
right. Something like
but
that.
yeah, I'm like, it wasn't per se recently. It's been a minute, but he
Yeah.
was just in Denver last year, and um, shoot, I think it was Woody Page. Someone at ESPN mentioned that he had a large part of helping Bo Nix transition from college to the NFL. And Bo Nix was a prospect I literally didn't care about and thought it was kind of a joke when he got drafted. I thought he was going to be the Mitch Trubisky of that class. And I mean, it's only been 1 year, but he looked pretty damn good. In fact, I have him in a couple fantasy leagues for what that's worth. But Morton got a fair amount of credit nationally as someone that really assisted helping Nix kind of mold his game into the NFL way. So I'm just like, obviously, Goff's way more of a pocket guy, but like, I mean, once again, I'm just not worried. I don't even think it's per se blind faith or drinking the Kool-Aid. I just think, trust Dan Campbell, trust Brad Holmes, the guys that they've brought in. Have been taking care of business. I mean, no one knew who Ben Johnson was when we signed him as our OC, and I don't want to act like the sky is falling like some will when we are replacing these coordinators. And I wouldn't be completely shocked if 2 or 3 years from now we're talking about replacing the guys again because these two got jobs somewhere else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And the one thing I forgot to say too about Morton was I'm excited to see his trick plays, man. I want to see because we all heard about how he was apparently a big part, at least in Ben Johnson's trick plays in general. Kind of showed him some sauce, for lack of a better term, with the trick plays. So I'm excited to see what he does there. It should be fun. I also hope he doesn't get too cute, but we'll see what happens.
I actually
Um,
did not hear about that. So that
oh,
intrigues
really?
me. Yeah, I did not hear that part. Not saying
Oh.
it's not true. I'm just saying I didn't hear that. That makes when the Bears come to town a lot more interesting if you're having two guys that each like to run trick plays. That
Mm-hmm.
should be a very interesting game. Maybe the punter should just stay home.
Yeah,
But
right. Just we're gonna bring Jack Fox out to play quarterback on 2nd and 5 and just hand it off, just for fun. That might, I mean, you never know. That might confuse somebody. It's
it'd
like the
confuse the
defense.
hell out of me.
Me too. I'd be like, what? What? And I mean, we know. Look, man, Jack Fox low key got an arm to him. So I'm just
He
saying.
does.
I'm just
I'm like,
saying.
if
All
we
right.
if we ran a hook and ladder with Panay Sewell, I mean, anything's on the table. So
Yeah. So with that being said, though, the Packers, however, okay, a couple things with them. Obviously, we talked about Love, we talked about Jacobs, we talked for the most part about their, offense. However, here's a fun fact for the Lions and I guess Packers fans. Not so fun fact for the Packers fans though. Um, the Packers defensive backs are not very good. Obviously, they have Xavier McKinney. We all know that, okay? Outside of that, though, they're not very good, and they got rid of Jair Alexander for nothing. So right now, okay, they did sign Nate Hobbs, who's a decent player. I will say he's all right. However, they have Xavier McKinney, Evan Williams, Nate Hobbs, and Keyshawn Nixon as their starting DBs, um, which is not great. And then they have Javon Bullard playing nickel. Not, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say they fucking suck. It's not like that. It's just, yes, you traded for Micah Parsons, and that will make a big difference. But I feel like our passing game could kind of pick them apart as long as we don't, as long as we give Goff enough time back there to read the defense. I feel like we could definitely cook this Packers secondary. So that is one thing I wanted to bring up too, because as we talked about with the defensive line, our run game should work. But really, right now, going against Green Bay, it's pass rush, and that's kind of it against their defense. I'm not really worried about anything else, honestly. And, looking at their depth chart, it does kind of seem like Micah Parsons might have been a little bit of um, what's the word? Vanity selection. More of like, oh, look at how good our defensive ends are. And it's like, right, but what about your defensive tackles and your linebackers and your corners and your safeties? Like
he's
their
a nice
linebackers are pretty
shiny
good.
he's a nice shiny chandelier in a haunted house.
Right, exactly. It's like, why do you have a 100-inch TV in the trailer park? It doesn't
It's
make sense. It's like that meme of the Lambo in the parked
oh
at
my
in the
yep
trailer
yep.
park. That's exactly what I thought because it's like that is what it. I mean, and they could even say we have a Lambo and we have a fucking I don't know a not as nice car but still pretty nice with Rashawn Gary. And then outside of that, well, Xavier McKinney is pretty good. They got a little motorcycle, but they still live at a trailer park. So it's like, what are we doing? You know, let's be honest here. Like the Packers, I don't think became necessarily Super Bowl contenders by any means. They did get a lot better, but they have a lot of holes. Like I said on the last show, it's more about the next 3 to 5 years that I'm worried about because they're very young. They can patch those holes. And Parsons is only 26. It's not like they did this for one season. Now, obviously they paid him a shit ton of money, so it's not like they're going to have money to just throw at free agents or anything, but we still have the draft, which they don't have first round picks, but they could still find some gems. So I'm a little worried about the future more than I am the present. And with that being said, my prediction for this game, I think the Detroit Lions They roll in Green Bay and roll on Green Bay 34-17. I think we're going to come out and make a frickin' point. And I do think Micah Parsons is going to look pretty good at times. I do. I think Rashawn Gary is going to look pretty good at times. However, I think Aiden frickin' Hutchinson is going to go nuts. I think he's going to have like a 2.5 sack, maybe even 3 sack game. And I think Tyleek Williams is going to eat up the middle. DJ Reader is going to eat up the middle as well. I don't feel like Josh Jacobs is going to have a great game. I think he could have a game similar to the 3 touchdown game he had last season. But again, that was a 3 touchdown game, but he had like 86 yards or something like that. It wasn't a crazy like yardage game. He was just getting the ball at the 2 yard line, stuff like that. So I am not that worried. I will say I do feel pretty confident we're going to go in there and get this dub, and it's going to be, I'm not going to say dominant. I do think it'll be pretty close throughout the game, but I do think we'll pull away in like the third quarter with like a DJ Reed interception or something like that to kind of
That'd be
give
nice.
us another one. I know, right? That'd be a beautiful start to the season. But what is your prediction for Sunday afternoon?
I've played this game out over the last probably 3 weeks because I've been looking forward to it so much, over and over in my head, and then those damn Packers had to trade for Parsons and throw a little bit of a monkey wrench in my plan. But but between I expect this to be a much lower scoring game than that personally. I think it's going to be a run heavy game on both sides. Like I mentioned before, I think Jacobs is the only one that the Lions should be worried about really in terms of like I shouldn't say stressing, but he's the guy you key in on.
Hmm.
And because of them trading away Kenny Clark, and you can I don't want to say easily mitigate the pass rush, but it doesn't matter if Parsons is pinning his ears back if you're just running it down their throat. So
Hmm.
I expect a lot of running on both sides, which means a running clock, which means the game's going to be quicker and there's going to be less overall possessions in the game. So I see this something, and obviously I can be wrong. Watch this be like a 42-35 game, but I see this as like a 21-17 or something like that in favor of the Lions. Um, I just think the Lions have too much firepower because, as you mentioned, they don't have, in my opinion, any corners that scare me. Obviously, they do have Xavier McKinney, but once again, you can mitigate that by going short routes. Obviously, he can't cover the whole field at the same time. We have enough weapons between JMO, St. Brown, Tesla, Laporta, Gibbs, Montgomery, and Gibbs and Montgomery can both catch. I know that there's been a lot of focus on, hey, Gibbs might line up more in the slot this year. Montgomery can catch too. So, I mean, we can mitigate, going around their star safety because he's a damn good player. So I'm not going to, just completely ignore that. But he can't cover five guys. So keep it short routes, keep it quick passes. That's another way you can mitigate Micah Parsons' ability to wreck the game. And like I said, with that being a running clock, I just see this being a much shorter game in totality. So yeah, I see it as like a 21-17 for the Lions.
Yeah, and it's funny because I agree and disagree with you for the same reasons. That probably doesn't make any sense, but I agree with you that we're going to run the ball a lot, and I agree with you that it's going to be one of those games that we're just going to try to grind it out, and I think that's how it's going to go for the first half. And then I think what's going to happen is it's going to be like I don't know, 17-10 at half, Lions are up, and I think we're going to come out and because look, a great way to fuck with any great pass rusher is play action, baby. Get him on a play action, he's going to go for that running back because if we're running it down their throat like we were in the first half in this scenario,
Yeah,
he's going to want that running back. And then Goff's going to boot out. And I just see it like this. I think the Packers will inevitably have at least one turnover, and I think that will lead to points for the Lions. I also think the Lions are going to have at least 3 to 4 big plays, and maybe two of them will be touchdowns. And I feel like one of them will be a long run by Jahmyr Gibbs. I see that happening on like a stretch, like a halfback stretch from like, you know, the like 50 or their 40 or something like that. And he's just going to break one and take off because I do think their linebackers are pretty good, and McKinney's very good. But like we mentioned, their DBs are not that good. So once he gets past that front seven, green grass, baby. You know what I'm saying? So I say all that to say I agree with you, but that's why I think we're gonna have more points in the same breath. So kind of a funny conversation there. But moving on to the last part of the show, which it's football season, baby. No Tigers this week, unfortunately. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like a lot of people are just ready for the playoffs to start in the MLB anyway. So once the real shit comes around, we'll probably talk about it next week, I'm sure. So
Yeah,
we
there's
just
not a lot going on with that. We're on a bit of a losing streak, but so are the teams chasing us. So,
yeah.
like, all in all, there's nothing good to talk about, but we're also not losing ground in the division. So,
Right. So I mean, and there you go. There was your
yeah,
Tigers
there.
update, folks. You're welcome. But with that being said, our last point of today's show will be our two games of the week, and we're going to keep this short, simple, and sweet because it's a Michigan sports show. We don't need to go all in on other NFL teams. But I did want to talk about it a little bit because it's football. Football's back, and there are some good games happening this week. For me, I chose Tampa Bay at Atlanta and Buffalo at Baltimore. I feel like these are the clear games of the week, in my opinion. Obviously, Buffalo, Baltimore, we know why. We know. I don't even got to say much, but I'm gonna anyway. So, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, the back-to-back MVPs. Josh won this year, Lamar won last year. Lamar, a lot of people feel Lamar was robbed. A lot of people felt Josh was robbed the year before, and we're opening the game one-on-one. Well, not one-on-one because we know it's football, but toe-to-toe against Buffalo at Baltimore. So I think that is going to be a huge game. That might be the best game for the first few weeks, honestly. It's a great AFC matchup, and that's a game we don't really get to see these teams play unless they play in the playoffs. So kind of a cool thing there to see week one. And then my second game is Tampa Bay at Atlanta. And this is kind of for a different reason, because these are two teams that aren't quite as solidified, I guess. Tampa Bay obviously has been in the playoffs the last few seasons, so they're a little more solidified than Atlanta. But I do feel like Atlanta is on the up and up. They have Penix, their young stud quarterback. They have Bijan Robinson, who a lot of people think is the best running back in the league. I think he's in Detroit, and his jersey's hanging on my wall. So I'm gonna say that. And Bijan, you're great, but you're an awesome number two. And with that being said, I also feel they have Drake London, who's a really good receiver. Darnell Mooney is a guy that I've loved for years when he was in Chicago. Similar, kind of a funny story. Terry McLaurin, I drafted him in every fantasy league like 2 years before he broke out, and it was because of how badly he cooked Darius Slay when he played us. And I was like, once this kid gets a quarterback, it's wraps. He's gonna be a dog. And then he went crazy. So then Darnell Mooney was my second guy that I was like, he's the next McLaurin. He's going to be the guy. It only took 3 years. I drafted him like 3 years ago, and then he went to Atlanta and started doing his thing. So just saying, I'm going to pat myself on the back, even though if it's 3 years too late. All right. I might even dropped him by now. I don't fucking remember, to be honest with you. But it's like, hey, we did it. But they have Darnell Mooney, who's, kind of, shown up in the scene as I'm not going to say a star wide receiver, but he had a couple really, really good games, and a couple were on primetime too. So he's shown the ability to kind of be a game changer for them offensively. And then, of course, they drafted new edge rushers. They stocked up their defensive line. I feel like the Falcons are one of those teams a lot of people aren't talking about that could be a playoff team by the end of the year. Honestly, I could see it. I wouldn't be that surprised if they won their division, if I'm being real with you, because obviously, Tampa Bay is there, Atlanta, Carolina, New Orleans. Who else is going to do it other than Tampa Bay?
Yeah, it's them or Tampa.
So, and that's why this game's so big as well, because divisional game, again, could be a really, really big game down the line. Like, 10 weeks from now, we might be talking about this game like Tampa Bay won, so now, they're tied in the wins. Atlanta's got to beat them the next time to make the playoffs or whatever the case may be. So that is why or a little bit more. Baker Mayfield, of course, is a great quarterback. I feel like he's very underrated.
Yep.
And I feel like, he's kind of led the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to being where they are now. They're great wide receiver core. They just added Igbuka as well. Their defense is really good. So I'm really excited for this matchup. I feel like this is going to be honestly like if Baltimore Buffalo wasn't this week, this would easily be the best game of the week. Outside of the Lions, of course, because Lions Packers game one is hard to beat, even if you're not a Lions fan. So, but with that being said, those are my two games of the week. What are yours, James?
I'm gonna choose different games, although you brought up two great ones. I feel like these ones will be a little bit more. Um, I don't want to say fun to watch from a game perspective, but more of a prospect perspective. I have the Tennessee Titans versus the Denver Broncos. Who doesn't want to see the number one pick play his opening game? Like, I don't think Tennessee has much of a chance in this game, but I want to see what Cam Ward has. He is, in my opinion, the least talked about number one pick, maybe in NFL history, leading up to the season. And he's going against a damn good Denver defense. In my opinion, it might be a top two defense in the whole league with Patrick Surtain, and they have great pass rush. They have a lot of things going on there. And as I mentioned before, Bo Nix kind of surprising me a little bit or surprised me quite a bit last year. Um, they obviously still have Surtain and well, I'm spacing on their other receiver.
Who's that?
Broncos receiver not named Surtain.
Receiver.
Yep.
Well, Sertain's a corner.
I'm sorry, Sutton, not named Sutton.
Oh, okay.
My bad.
Okay, that makes sense.
My
And I
bad.
see how you did that. I see how you
Yep.
switched that.
Sutton Surtain. Yep.
Uh, shit. Starts with an
Yep.
M.
Yep.
Starts with an M.
Mims. Mims.
Mims,
There it is.
yes.
I was gonna
Denzel,
say
or not
I'm like
Denzel.
I do know what I'm
Marvin
talking about,
Mims.
people. Marvin Mims Jr.
Yeah.
Now that yeah,
Tell him.
between Mims and Sutton, not Surtain, although Surtain's always fun to watch.
True.
Um, like I said, just two, one high-powered offense, and then just like I said, the number one pick. Let's see what he's got, and this is a just literally being thrown straight into the fire. And then my other game is Houston versus the Rams. We went to the Texans joint practice. They got a damn good team. They have quite the pass rush, as you mentioned with Darnell Hunter and obviously Will Anderson. And then
Who
the
I
Ram,
saw, almost met him, was like 5 feet away, which was pretty sweet. Anyway,
and then you go on to the Rams, who also have a nice young pass rusher with Verse. Obviously, the Stafford angle. What does the offense look like without Cooper Kupp for the first time in like 12 years? Slightly over exaggerating, but they have Devonte Adams now. There's been several years I was hoping that we could see a Stafford to Devonte Adams connection, although I wish it was in Detroit, but we get to see it at least at this point in time. And that I just feel like is going to be a really nice game. The Rams obviously have a nice D line too. That's just going to be a good trench game to watch. Keep an eye on for that. And to keep it short, I'll just end it with that. Those would be my two games that I would at least um, try to keep an eye on. The only thing that really sucks about both of those games are they are in the 4:10 slash
mm,
4:30 slot, so they are playing at the exact same time as the Lions. So I'm just going to have to catch the highlights.
YouTube TV, baby. Shout out. The multi-screen thing is crazy.
I
Just
haven't
saying.
tried that before.
It's nuts, dude. On YouTube TV, you get to like just hit multi-view, and it gives you like there's four little screens on your screen that you can do different games. Which
Okay.
luckily I half it with one of my coworkers, so it is pretty expensive, I will say. So, but with that being said, that is going to be it for this show. As always, appreciate you guys for watching. Drop down in the description, click the link, Fanatics. Y'all know what it is. Shop your apparel, get your stuff, get your gear. Football season is here. What better time to buy a jersey? All right, especially a rookie. Tesla, I'm looking at you. All right. Second, trytheworld.com. Try the world's snacks. It's pretty good. I have not tried it yet, unfortunately. I will say it's a little out of my budget personally, but if you're super into, I like to travel. I like to do different things. It is within your budget because you will spend a lot less money doing this than you would traveling there to try
My
this
God,
stuff. I can
yes.
guarantee it. Like, not even close. With that being said, though, links are in the description. Try them out. We appreciate you guys. Like, comment, and subscribe. As always, we will see you next week. I am at JSoSweet, James at Gullet_James, and both of us at MI Sports Media and www.misportsmedia.com. Once again, we appreciate you guys for watching. See ya.